most of us would probably agree that when things get bad, whether it's social unrest, a weather event, or something worse, we'd much rather ride out the situation at home where all of our gear is. But realistically speaking, most of us spend a lot more time at work or doing other things than we do at home. But one of the best ways to stay ready, no matter where you are, is to use your vehicle as a secondary home base. If you get creative, most cars, trucks, and SUVs have a fair amount of storage space that we can use to help us be more prepared, even if a major event happens while we're away at home. So today, I'm going to show y'all how I've set up my truck to help me stay ready for both little everyday emergencies, along with more serious disaster situations. And this isn't just for four-wheel drive vehicles like my Jeep. You can do most of this stuff no matter what kind of vehicle that you have. First up, we have things that you would want to be able to get to from the front seat of your vehicle. Most of these are just normal daily convenience kind of items, but a couple of them are things that you would want to be able to get to quickly during an emergency. The main one being this vehicle escape tool. You just pull it down off of its little clip, and it has a seatbelt cutting tool and then also a spring-loaded glass breaker, so that if something happens and you're trapped and there's no other way to get out, then you have that tool ready to go. And the way that I have it up here just folds out of the way, and so there's not this big bright dangling thing right in my field of view. Then we have our phone charging cable plugged into the USB port on the dash, and there are plenty of situations where maybe you have cell signal, but your battery dies and you need to get in contact with somebody. Having this will help you be able to get your phone up and running again, and also help you listen to some really jamming tunes while you're driving without having to mess with Bluetooth. Then inside of the center console here, I have a flashlight, I have a little lighter, a non-battery operated tire pressure gauge, and that's really important to have during these winter months because, you know, you get up one morning, the tire pressure light's on. Some older cars don't tell you exactly which one it is. This will keep you from having to fish around for one in the garage. Then also have some common medications in here because, I mean, we've all experienced it. You're just out and about, maybe you're at work, you're at the store, you start to have a headache, maybe some stomach issues, whatever. Having that there is very nice. Just be sure to swap them out at the end of each season, especially during warmer weather, because that can cause that to degrade a little bit. Then I have a ballpoint pen, and inside of the main part of the console, I have a notepad with a pencil so that I can leave notes, breadcrumbs, whatever the case may be. And I also have a battery jump pack. And I also have jumper cables in here, but this is just very nice, very convenient to use. You plug the little clips in to that port right there, and it just gives you a very fast way to deal with any battery issues that come up. And also, let's say you're shopping, you're in the parking lot, you see somebody with their hood up, then you can help them get on their way a little bit quicker too. Now, I also keep some hygiene items in the glove box there. I keep some wet wipes and some hand sanitizer just so I can clean myself up, especially like if I'm gonna go eat or something like that. Maybe I'm doing a video at the range, I want to be able to wipe all that stuff off my fingers. Having that's very useful. Also keep some Kleenexes in here. You can use napkins for this too, but my 6-year-old, he's always, you know, either has a snotty nose or, you know, needs to wipe something off. This helps deal with that. Then I also keep a headlamp inside of my glove box for, you know, if I need hands-free lighting. Next up, we have what's probably going to be the more fun part of the video, because this backseat organizer is where I have a lot of my survival gear, tools, things like that. But I'm going to take it off of here and set it up on the tailgate so that y'all can get a better look at what's inside. Now, before I get into all this, I do want to say that you don't have to get a tactical seat organizer. I actually don't even really like the way that this looks. I try to blend in whenever possible, but it had so many pouches and compartments, it was really hard to pass up. There's plenty of other ways that you could go about doing this, though. But with this particular one, since it's Molly, you can detach pouches from here, use them elsewhere if you want to, and the pouches themselves really aren't that bad of quality, especially considering the whole thing was $60 off of Amazon. But anyway, in this first pouch here, I have what I refer to as some high-velocity Pez dispensers. Oops, wait, oh no, normally I talk about that kind of stuff on my second channel, DIY Prepper Reloaded. but I did want to have some of those in there. Now, I don't normally keep the tools themselves inside of the truck, but having some spare Pez to feed them is always a good thing. And for the little ones, they're compatible with either my everyday carry or the larger one that I keep in my Alice rig. So a lot of options here, a lot more flexibility. Then inside of the second compartment, this is more or less kind of a tech pouch, or at least that's how I'm using it. And I have a ham radio inside of here. And the good thing about these little Baofeng ham radios is that in addition to being able to transmit, you can still use them a lot of different ways besides that if you don't have a license. Like this can pick up FM stations, it can also pick up NOAA weather frequencies, so you could use them for that, which is always good during weather events. And also you can listen to what the hams in your area are saying. So if there's something going on, then you can just figure out whatever local repeater that they're using, listen in and see what's going on. And then also, if it is a life or death situation, you have absolutely no other way to communicate and you will die if you do not, then you can use a ham radio in an emergency if you're not licensed. But that being said, it's for emergency use, life or death only, and I probably will eventually get a ham license anyway. But in the next compartment, I have a USB battery bank and then a micro USB cord to cover any devices that my iPhone cable up front isn't going to cover. Like my headlamp in the glove box, it uses that micro USB. And then even though this is not a tech item, I do have an N95 mask in here to help deal with dust, debris, smoke, whatever the case may be. It just wouldn't fit in other compartments, so here it is in here. Then inside of this compartment here, I have a Texas state map so that I could figure out what's going on if GPS poops the bed. And I also have some heavy duty contractor bags. You can use these as a poncho, to waterproof your gear, maybe makeshift shelter of some sort. They just have a ton of uses and they take up almost no space. So there's really no excuse to not have them in a setup like this. Then in my next pouch, as you can probably guess, this is where I keep my first aid kit. And right now, I just have a basic first aid kit that I bought a while back stuffed in here. It has bandages, basic medications, like an ice pack, then tweezers, just, normal run-of-the-mill stuff. This might be something that I upgrade later on, like I may add some hemostatic bandages to it. I may also add a tourniquet, just things to have with me in case, some sort of trauma event happens. I normally keep those in my EDC bag, but the good thing about a kit like this is it gives you redundancy if something really bad happens, multiple people need your help, or if maybe you just leave your EDC bag at home because it's a short trip, something like that, you're not expecting anything to happen, but it does, you'll have this. Then inside of this pouch here, I have tools that I would want to get to quickly if I needed them. In this first compartment, I have just basic repair items, things like electrical tape, some zip ties, nothing too earth-shattering there, just make my life a little bit easier. Then I do have some ratchet straps. I keep more underneath the seat of my truck, but I don't want to have to move all that mess out of the way to access my underseat storage if I just need to secure something. So I have a set right here, ready to go and easy to get to. Then inside of the main compartment here, if I can get in, I have a bit driver and a ton of different bits. Like I have like 4 sleeves of these things of just different things, your flatheads, your Phillips, Torx, Allen, all that kind of different kind of stuff. And then also have an adjustable wrench. Now I do have other tools like sockets and wrenches that I can use underneath my seat. But once again, these are just little things that are good to have easy access to. Then this next pouch here is where I keep my survival gear. And what's nice about this is that you can take it off and use it as a standalone pack. It comes with a little strap so you can carry it, or you could run it through your belt and use it as a waist pack. But in this front compartment here, I have some paracord, also some emergency blankets, just little Mylar ones, and some emergency ponchos. Also have a little mini roll of duct tape that I made just by rolling it around, a little pencil, And then I have a compass, and I will say that these little button compasses by Suunto are actually pretty decent. A lot of button compasses that you find are pretty junky, but this one works pretty well. Then over here in this side compartment, I have some multi-tools and fire starting stuff. In this pouch, I have a little cheap Leatherman. This isn't the best one that I have, but it'll work. And to supplement it, I have a Victorinox Ranger. It has things like a wood saw on it that are very, very useful to have. These saws are good for more precision work. And then also I have a fire kit. So inside of here, I have another little Bic lighter. I have a pencil sharpener for creating tinder, and then also has some Vaseline and cotton ball fire starters in there. And then also have a ferro rod. I normally keep a ferro rod on my keychain, but the saw on the Swiss Army knife, it does a very good job striking. And then also my EDC knife can strike one of these as well. So I have plenty of ways to make fire inside of this kit. Then over here in this other side compartment, I have an Esbit stove with a few hexamine tablets stored inside. And these little Esbit stoves, in addition to being able to use the hexamine, you can use twigs if you have to. I mean, it wouldn't be the best stove in the world, but it is something that you could put like a little metal pot or cup on. And I do actually like hexamine for a kit like this because it is pretty stable. You're not going to have really any issues keeping it in a car for a long period of time like you would other fuel types. I don't normally like hexamine a whole lot of the time, but this is one situation where it's actually a pretty decent choice. Then inside of this main compartment, I have a water bottle, a stainless steel cup that I can use with that Esbit stove, but inside of this water bottle, I have a Sawyer Mini, which is a decent water filter, especially if you're in a backcountry area. I also have some water purification tablets in case something goes wrong with that Sawyer, and I have a bandana, which, you know, those have a ton of different uses, and one of them is as a pre-filter so that I don't clog up my Sawyer a lot faster than what I need to. Also have some leather work gloves in here that I could use for working on the truck or, you know, just general survival tasks. I have a little Mora Craftline Basic. This is a pretty inexpensive Mora, but like all other knives, it is pretty decent and it would work okay for just simple bushcraft type tasks. And then lastly, I have a Baco Laplander wood saw. While the Victorinox is good for precision work, like making notches for traps or other things, this is going to be better for, you know, larger branches if you're having to make a shelter, things like that. Then also try to utilize the space underneath my seats and also behind the back seats. Underneath that front passenger seat, I have this right here, and that just has some winter clothing in it. It has an extra jacket, some gloves, and then also a Wooby blanket. And then underneath the driver's seat, I have a fire extinguisher and then also a military tri-fold shovel just in case I got to dig myself out of somewhere. Then behind my back seat, I have some pouches of emergency purified drinking water and then also some lifeboat rations. This is one area that I probably really do need to expand because that's not a whole lot of water and that's not a whole lot of food, but the way that you can get around that is just by being sure to put some food and water inside of, like, if you have an EDC bag, and definitely be sure to bring some extra food and water with you if you're taking a longer trip. Then in this other side here, I have some additional tablets for my Esbit stove. Then underneath the seats, I have different things that I don't use all that often, but I would still want to have with me if things got really bad. Right here, I have a nice wool blanket that'll do a much better job keeping us warm than those little janky Mylar space blankets would. And I also have a tarp that we could use as an emergency shelter if needed. Inside of this tool bag, I have some additional tools, things like sockets and ratchets. I also have a fairly large pair of pliers. I have more ratchet straps in there. Things that I could use to do more in-depth work, like if we're on vacation or traveling somewhere and we have to change out the battery, then I have everything that I would need in here to do that task. Then I have an emergency candle in here that's very important for winter. I have a hatchet, those jumper cables that I talked about earlier, also a tow strap, some more work gloves, And then of course I have the jack, tire iron, and all, all the stuff that it came with to help change out your tire. And guys, make sure that your vehicle actually has a spare tire. That's one good thing about having a Jeep, is that they usually come, I think, with a full-size spare. At least mine did. But a lot of cars don't have those nowadays, so make sure that you know what you got. Then also have a breaker bar in here along with a nice long crowbar. Then there's some other items that I don't really keep with me all the time, but I do load up if I'm going to be taking a longer trip, especially if it's overnight. And first up, I have a sleeping bag. I know that we have the blankets inside of the truck, but a decent cold weather sleeping bag could make a very big difference if you have to take shelter in your car, especially overnight. Then also would be a tent. I mean, things have to get pretty bad to use this, but I mean, if you have room for it, you might as well carry it. And then also have some things to help me take care of my vehicle a little bit more conveniently than I would be able to otherwise. First up, I have an impact driver. Now, an impact wrench would be a lot better, but you can get adapters for this that would allow you to take your lug nuts off. And since those adapters, they might not be the best tool for the job, I would just use this if one was getting real stubborn. I'd try to go ahead and use the tire iron if I could get away with it, and then maybe a cheater bar too. But this right here is real cool. This is a tire inflator. Most of these that you see, they run on the cigarette lighter port in your vehicle, but this runs on the same batteries as that little impact driver does, and it'll fill up your tires really fast, really easy. It shuts off automatically. It's a really cool tool. I got this mainly so that, with winter coming up, both my wife and I, our tire pressure lights, if they were turned on at the same time, this would allow me to deal with that problem very quickly before we both have to, get to work or take our kid to school. And I would probably keep the batteries for these inside of the vehicle itself, just because those can be a little more temperature sensitive than the actual tools can. But this tote right here, it is waterproof. So if you're like me and you're having to use a tonneau cover to protect this stuff, and those aren't really waterproof, then having it in a waterproof tote should protect everything inside. You shouldn't have all that much to worry about. Then also, if I'm taking a longer trip, I do like to carry a spare gas can with me. This doesn't have anything in it, but if I was somewhere and something went down and I was able to get gas, I could fill up the truck, fill this up, and then have at least a little bit of fuel so that if gas was unavailable for a longer distance. And then anytime that I take a long trip, I always carry something like a water brick or an aquatainer with me, just to give us a little bit extra drinking water. I usually carry an aquatainer, but these water bricks and also military water cans are going to be a lot better if you're having to keep them in the back of a vehicle like this, just because they're a little more durable. But a well-equipped vehicle is just one thing that you'd want to have if things went downhill. I did an entire course that covered what to do in the first 72 hours of a disaster, and you can check that out using the link in the description below. Now, if you want to see a list of things that every prepper should do between now and December 1st, then click here. Or if you want to see preps and survival gear that are actually worth buying, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.